Welcome to this episode of the Best Hopes podcast. My name is Adam Brower.
And I'm Cecil Walker.
And in this podcast, we are slowly walking through different slices of hope and how hope can manifest itself really in lots of different ways. And the reason that we're talking about this is because in our work as psychotherapists, we begin by asking people, what are your best hopes? What do you want from our work together? And so we really need to break down, pull apart, what is hope? What are we really asking people when we're saying, what do you hope from this process? And so if you're new here, please know that there are other episodes that we explain, kind of pull this apart a bit more. And we have already taken 3 different slices of hope. And today we're going to take our 4th slice of what hope can be. And I think with each slice that we take, I would say, and I'm guessing you would probably echo this, that the richness of hope is surprising each time. We're like, man, there's another slice here that we could take. And I'm really excited actually about today's slice because I think it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I am constantly surprised that there's a whole nother angle that we could talk about this from. I knew there was depth to this and I knew there was so many ways people interact with hope and use it and all the things that it could mean, but to really see it up close and talk through it, it's kind of shocking. It makes it seem all the more accessible, I think, if there's this many facets to it. Like, just grab one of them, just do something with it.
That's a good point. Well, today we're going to talk about, again, for those of you who are new, we kind of take a synonym of hope and then we kind of link it back. And so the synonym that we've chosen today on the surface seems like a disconnected synonym, but we've chosen the synonym of encouragement. And then also one of the things I do is kind of I list synonyms of that synonym. So, and I think this will help us to kind of link it back to hope. But some of the synonyms of hope are advocacy, fortitude, inspiration, invigoration, and optimism. And so, Cecil, like I always do, I'll kick us off with a question because I always get to start for some reason. Again, I said this idea of encouragement at surface level doesn't seem connected to the concept of hope. Can you help bring the two terms together? Why are we considering encouragement?
Well, I think those other synonyms that you threw out that elicit a bit more detail about encouragement and what we mean by encouragement are helpful. The confidence, fortitude, inspiration, optimism. And to me, what that instantly does is it says we're talking about hope in a kind of different direction than we've talked about it so far before. Before, it was a thing that a person does. I'm hoping for, meaning I have a belief in, I'm trusting in, I'm wanting, whatever I'm doing is an action coming from me towards some possibility of something. And this is going in the opposite direction. It's that end point, that outcome is doing something to me now. It's coming back from where it is as a possible future to me now and making me feel different and act different and be different. That's the inspiration. That's the encouragement piece of it. And I think seeing that instantly, I think we all can see how that's the stuff that's made the world the way it is. That's every single person in history who's made a difference has felt some encouragement from a vision of how they thought the world should be or how they thought the thing that they're working on should come out in the end. And so I think most people would probably be on the same page of, I want to be someone who has an impact. Whatever that impact is and what kind of impact that is might vary, but most people want to leave a mark somehow in whatever that they do. And so this is super relevant to that, which means it's relevant to everyone.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. As you were talking, I went back to, it was interesting because you and I saw Hamilton, the play, together. And I think as you were talking, that play came back to my mind because they had this vision of what could be, right? All of these people had come out of oppressive situations. All of these people were kind of fleeing other countries to come to say, we want to create something different than where we've been before. And much of the interaction is like, how are we going to create this thing that we can see out there? This more perfect, one of the things they kind of come back to all the time is a more perfect union. And I think holding that vision then, like you said, it informed what they did right now. They each maybe had different philosophies around like, how do we get there? But they were unified in saying, we want to achieve something different than what we've had before. And I think that those words, those other synonyms like inspiration and invigoration,
Mm-hmm.
I really like the way that you said it, of like, it changes that thing that's inspiring changes me.
Mm-hmm.
I now act in accordance with being inspired, or I feel invigorated by this idea or this vision, and that changes how I in this moment behave. And the other thing I think that's really valuable about that is the sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Catching the vision inspires me to do something different before the vision is realized. So just holding a vision is enough. I don't even have to necessarily see outcomes or results, or even an idea
Mm-hmm.
can be inspiring enough to me that it would change what I do in a particular moment.
You answered what I was actually gonna ask you is, do you think, I mean, you just said it very plainly, so it seems redundant now that I would ask it, but do you think just being able to detail, just being able to say, that's the outcome I want, this thing, what I'm envisioning, that's enough, just that vision is enough to make someone different, make someone interact with their present in a different kind of a way? And I think this slice of hope that we're talking about, it seems like it's founded on that. It seems like it's founded on the premise that yes, that is enough to change things. And it lays it out in such a simple way, because if you look here, the components all we have are, there's some outcome, there's some thing, some possibility that is desirable. And now you feel and are different because you want that thing. And you apparently want it so much that you're willing to say, what do I have to do to make that happen? What are the choices that we have to make right now? What are the battles that I have to fight right now? What's the kind of person I have to work hard to be to make that outcome a reality? And I think it definitely is relevant to something as large as the birth of this country, which is at the heart of the musical Hamilton. But I think it could be relevant to anything. It could be, what kind of family I want to raise. It could be what kind of person I want to grow up to be. It could be what kind of work I want to do in my career. It could be whatever the thing is. I think being able to reach into the future and say, this is what I want, this layout is what I want to see come true, then I got to use that to inspire me, to encourage me, to be a certain kind of a person, to do certain kinds of things to make that happen. You're saying that's enough. So then what do we do with that? We've got that. Maybe we feel the things we feel, but what then?
Yeah, I think that's actually a really powerful question. The answer I'm going to give isn't a strange answer, but I hope I'll explain it well enough. It actually goes back to the word itself, encouragement. In what you just said, you said, in essence, holding this vision encourages me. Mm-hmm. And as you were talking, Martin Luther King came to my mind. He's very well known and famous for, I have a dream. Yeah. I see this possibility out there where everyone is treated fairly, where everyone has the same opportunities, where we get along with each other because we're human. There's this vision that I can see out there. And so then your question is, so if you can see that, if you have a dream, what do you do? And I think the easiest way I can say it, which is, will also need some explanation, is you behave as though the dream is real. Like you behave as though the dream has already occurred. Martin Luther King marched in Selma. He organized rallies to say, hey, in essence, I guess this is what I would say, he encouraged others to catch the dream, to catch the vision. And so I think the vision, the dream encouraged him, and then he encouraged others to catch the dream. It becomes this like perpetual cycle of encouragement. And so I think you let the encouragement grow. The other thing that came to my mind is something completely unrelated, but hopefully, again, I can pull these together, is this idea or this concept from neuroscience, which is simply imagining something, seeing it in vision, versus experiencing it in real time, our brain, if we envision it so well, our brain really can't distinguish, is this happening or am I just imagining that it's happening? Athletes will use this idea to like rehearse, to practice certain plays. They'll run it through their head. They're not actually playing the game, but their brain doesn't distinguish, am I playing the game or am I just rehearsing for the game? Musicians will do this as they run through a piece over and over and over. They're envisioning a perfect performance and their brain can't distinguish, am I just thinking about a perfect performance or am I performing a perfect performance? And so I think what do you do when you have this vision? You think about it. You think about every detail of it. You let it grow. You tell your brain, this dream I have is entirely possible. And then you go out and you encourage other people. You tell people about the dream. You tell people about the vision. You behave as though the vision, the dream that you have is a reality because your brain can't distinguish the difference. And then you start getting all of these confirmations that indeed that encouragement is paying off. I can see the fruits of that. And so you keep encouraging yourself and you encourage other people to catch the same vision.
Yeah, I think that's another really like shimmering component to this angle of hope that we're talking about. Is it seems like there's an even more reinforced sense of certainty maybe to the outcome, like how fixed Martin Luther King must have been. In any of these examples that you're throwing out, if you're experiencing a practice of something rather than the real thing, how you have to entertain that and use that as if it's the real deal. You have to picture it and experience it as if it's the real thing. I think that's slightly different than how we've been talking about it before. We've been talking about it like that outcome as being a possibility or this thing that you believe in, you trust in. And this is like saying like, no, we're talking about it and reacting to it as if this is the reality that we're in at the moment. And that inevitably makes such a huge difference. I forget the name of that psychologist who wanted to prove that you could make a genius like out of a child. And he raised his daughters to be
chess players.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they went on to be, some of the greatest chess players in the world, just because he said, you're going to be brilliant chess players. It was like certain. He had fixed that outcome and then went back and said, well, now what are all the things that I have to do, we have to do, they have to do to get to that point? Because that's the outcome that we're going to get from this. And clearly it worked. When you live a life, a childhood of, I'm growing up to be a chess master, that with that outcome being so fixed like that, it's almost like nothing else even matters. It's like you're on the path toward that thing. I know a lot of musicians say similar things. A lot of like artists, anyone who is really successful at whatever creative thing that they do now, it was like they had to do that thing. When they were younger, they were, handing out CDs of their music to people. They were writing songs endlessly as if they had been commissioned to do that. They were, playing their instrument nonstop, singing whatever nonstop, because some part of them was like, I am this thing. I'm a musician. I'm a whatever. And I could see myself doing something big with this, something impactful with this. And when you see yourself in that kind of a way and say that this is the path that you're on, I mean, it's just, you live your life differently. You have to do certain kinds of things. And I think sometimes when we admire someone who's done something really, really big or notable, we chalk it up to something about that person is just really special. They're amazing, and you just have to get lucky enough to be one of those amazing people who got enough lucky opportunities or enough lucky genes or something to become that kind of amazing person. I actually think that's not the whole picture. Sure, luck plays a big part of it, depending on what kind of success you're looking at. But I think what makes an even bigger difference than most other components is how fixed on that outcome you are. I mean, that's what gathered so much support around Martin Luther King. He inspired other people because he was so inspired by, I know this dream is a possibility for us. I know it could really be our reality. And I'm sure there were lots of people in the time and place that he existed and worked that said, I'm not that sure that could be a reality for us. I'm not even sure it's worth hoping and dreaming for those kinds of things. Let's survive today and just get through what we need to get through. But he made the ripples that he made just because he was fixed on it, just because he was like, this thing could really happen for us. And I think we got to do stuff to make sure that we're on the path towards it.
Yeah, it makes me think of two things. The first thing is reaching for something that seems at the beginning unreachable, right? I think like right now there's a lot of like momentum and enthusiasm and like, again, a couple of these words of like invigoration and optimism about getting to Mars.
Yeah.
Right. And I think about like for the extent of history of people, Mars seemed unattainable. And now there are several companies, several government agencies, several like who not only believe, but who are pursuing, how are we going to get there? What is life going to be like? How are we going to make Mars sustainable for people? And I think believing now that it's possible is changing technology, right? We are purposefully creating things to deal with high heat. We're purposefully creating things that can last for long distance. So even the work that we're doing changes because something that seemed unattainable now seems attainable. And I think that idea of like holding a hope for something changes the way that we approach that thing. And I think that's important. And then that leads me to the second kind of thought or idea, which is we better be really purposeful about what hope we're holding on to, what dream we have. If we're not purposeful, we could end up hoping for something that may not be worth it, or may not be far enough of a stretch, or may not push us to greatness. And so I think the other thing that this kind of hope, this encouragement kind of hope does, is it says, reach far. Let a big dream change how you live your everyday life. Let it change the small moments. I think that's the other thing that this kind of brings to my mind is you got to be really purposeful, because if just holding that and working toward it could make it be, we better make something really meaningful become a reality.
Yeah, that to me is kind of highlights one of the many like superpowers I see children as having, because they have yet to be loaded down with reasons not to hope so big and dream so big yet. You know, reality and bills and inconveniences and all these other things haven't yet said, here's why you need to put those dreams to the side or minimize those dreams or like be smaller in what you're hoping for. And so they dream really, really big, and they're constantly doing hard things, I think, because of that. If you really take the time to put yourself in the shoes of a 10-year-old, everything is new to you. You're in class being inundated with information that seems like it's coming from, you know, infinite sources of history and math and everything. And it's just like, everything is so new to you. Maybe you're playing a sport or playing an instrument or, you know, whatever. You're still learning your first language, maybe even. And it's like constant inundation of information and technique and knowledge, while on top of, here are social norms that you should also be adhering to. And that's so hard. That is so difficult to go through that. And you're constantly probably making mistakes and failing at it and not being very good. And maybe even stuck in a place where you're not going to be good for several years at a lot of these things. And so, but they keep going because they, for some reason, have some hope, some idealized vision of, well, if I want to be an astronaut, you know, I got to do this kind of stuff. I'm going to read some space books. I'm going to, you know, look at these cool rocks that I found, because all that is connected and it's all part of this big dream that I have about this thing. And they even dream for things that very literally aren't possible. You know, if you want to, I remember there was a comedian who said he asked his son what he wanted to be. And he said, he was really proud when he said, I think I want to be a doctor. And his son was like 6 or 7 years old. And he was like, I felt really good in that moment for about 3 seconds until he said, either that or a dinosaur. And so they obviously could dream for things that just maybe literally aren't possible. But holding on to that is the point. Like holding on to the idea of there's something big that I want. could take you really far, even if that thing literally isn't possible. I don't know what he would do with the dream of being a dinosaur, but if he really thought he was on the path to being a dinosaur, I'm sure that'd make him do some things that, he wouldn't have done if he just thought, my dream is to, drop out of high school and do nothing with my whole life. To your original point, I think it very much matters what expectation you have, what possibility you're putting your stock in, what belief you have in the possibility for the future, because that's going to make a difference on who you are right now at this moment. And I don't think it's a supernatural thing. I think it's a psychological reality-based thing. If you think you're living in a world where what you're heading towards is actually very mediocre or not that satisfying, you're going to live your life in a way that says, I'm a person stuck on a mediocre path, stuck on an unsatisfying path, rather than someone who is heading towards something big, something really important, something impactful.
Yeah, I think that maybe the last thing that I would say about that, and you just kind of highlighted it, is this kind of hope, if it's invigorating, if it's encouraging, it feeds itself. And so I think if you find yourself holding a vision that doesn't do that for you, right? That doesn't get you excited, that doesn't invigorate you, that doesn't fill you with optimism. If you're in a job and you feel like, this is just mundane, I don't think I could do this for the rest of my life, that might be an indication that you're holding a dream that's not the right dream for you. If you, as you know, I taught at a university for 11 years, and I think people would come thinking, I want to be a therapist, because that's the kind of professor that I was. And over time, you would see some students lose that excitement for it. Their work would suffer. Their engagement with clients would change. And I think if you're really honest with yourself, then you could say, perhaps I'm holding the wrong dream. And so just as much as, like we talked about at the beginning, like holding this dream can influence your day-to-day activities and what you do and the level of commitment that you have, holding the wrong dream will influence your everyday. You start to procrastinate, or you put things off, or you figure out a way to get out of things. Your day-to-day activities are influenced if you're holding the wrong dream. And so I think that's the other thing that this can do, is that it's not just like an entity, like some of these other things about hope that we've talked about. It's not like an entity, but it can be a bit of a barometer. Am I really aiming at something that's worth hoping for?
Yeah, I think somewhere in this conversation we said something along the lines of the dream could be anything. There's really a certain kind of impact that you want the dream to have. It shouldn't be anything. It should be a specific kind of a dream. I think there's lots of people who throw around lots of hopes for, I want to lose weight, or I want to save money. I want to, very typical things like that are worth, probably hoping for. Why limit yourself in stopping there? Why not really dream for what it is that you want? I want to be able to like myself when I look at myself in the mirror and be happy with myself and my body. I want to feel like I'm doing adulthood well, and I'm doing it in such a consistent way that my finances are right where I want them to be. I want to be able to be proud of myself, even if I can't really feel like other people are feeling proud of me. Really dream for exactly what it is you want, and not misdirecting it towards these less substantial things, or not even specific enough.
Yeah, I think that's really, really beautiful. And I think I love these different slices of hope. This one, about being encouraged, and we'll probably get to this at the end of all of this, but like, I love the totality of what these can create, right? When we say, what are your best hopes? I love that it's a reciprocal thing, that holding this idea influences the way that I act, but also holding hope can inspire me to dream bigger than I thought that I could dream. And I think that's really kind of what you're getting at with that, is like, choose a dream that is a reach, and then throw your whole self into achieving that dream.
Yeah.
I think that's the amazing, awe-inspiring nature of people, is that our capacity often is much more than we originally understood that it could be. And I think this version of hope helps us to understand, how can we actually achieve more than we thought we could? And I think because it's inspiring, because it's invigorating, because it pushes us to achieve more than we thought.
Yeah. Well, I could keep going all day long, but I won't hold us to that.
Well, thank you very much for being here. Thanks for engaging in this process. If you know of somebody else who could be inspired, if you could encourage somebody else with this version of hope, please share this episode of the Best Hopes podcast with them. Please share all of the episodes of the Best Hopes with them. We do this work because I think we have a dream, we have a vision of what hope could do for the world.
Absolutely.
And so please help us achieve what we're reaching for. And until next time, go live hopeful lives.